All right, we're back on the air, and since I was gone, it lost the connection to the Ustream server, so it stopped broadcasting, and I wasn't here to deal with that. So that's one of the issues. Also, the battery for the webcam went out, so I have a spare one. I'm going to put that in right now. And we can keep on going here as we need to. Replacing the battery. So, I went to church, back from church. It's very cold here outside. Looks like some weather is moving in. Church was the usual thing. It's kind of like using a rowboat to cross the Pacific Ocean. It's not exactly high intensity focus on getting free from cycles of existence. Of course, that's promised, but is the intensity there? That's the question. Are we doing a problem here? Is the intensity, is the message sufficient intensity to make that, to get you to drop false identity? Ultimately, you're the one who has to do it. Okay. The old one. I'm gonna have to that's the old one again, so I have to anyway enjoy this special rare video. I will get some reconnect with the webcam here if possible. Hold on.
Thank you for joining us at Melodiescape, and we'll see everyone.
well, it's not allowing us to add the video back in after it's dropped out, which is a shortcoming of this situation. I've been able to do it before. So anyway, here we are, and the Oscars are just about over. Academy Awards thing is just about over. We're taking a look at Ramana-Maharshi. And his advice, which is to drop the false identity, which is what we all need to do, what we're all focused on doing, what the ego is focused on preventing us from doing. The ego plays hardball. It will do anything it can conceive of to prevent us from dropping false identity. Has no scruples, no morals, no ethics. Will use any type of entrapment, any trickeration to convince spirit to keep on keeping on. And so, of course, we need to be very persevering in what we do. Otherwise, we have no chance to succeed. I'm still working on trying to get this camera up and going. Maybe I can succeed at that. But as far as dropping false identity, we need the witnessing of these great beings, these great gurus, to tell us the truth and reaffirm the truth and back it up for us and keep reassuring us that it's true. Sure, during his time, Ramana-Maharshi was very reassuring, and since many people have been reassured by him, but as time goes on, the ego is expert at forgetfulness. It is the great master of forgetfulness. We tend to stray without even knowing it. It's so easy to lose track. I mean, we can be full of clarity one day into the evening before we go to bed. We're just thinking, this is it. I'm so clear. I'm going to really drop false identity. And then we go to sleep. We wake up in the morning, we've forgotten everything. Like starting over from scratch. Every day's like that, starting over from scratch. You can't even remember what in the world was I thinking of yesterday. Can't remember. Multiply that times, infinity, and you get the level of forgetfulness that can take place in this world when you pay attention to the ego. And for instance, if you're watching the Academy Awards, will your mind be on salvation? Will it be on dropping false identity? No, that will be the farthest thing from your mind, because the idea of movies and all that stuff is to make existence seem interesting, make it seem attractive in some way. There's all sorts of formulas that are used to make you think like, wow, this is really intriguing, interesting. I want to pay attention to this. You will forget all about it. It will be deep, deep, deep in the recesses. And who knows when you'll be able to pull it out again. It's difficult enough when you spend all your time focusing on the spiritual path. Like, for instance, yesterday I was completely focused on producing all of these the slideshows you're watching. So for hours and hours and hours and hours, I was seeing these great sages and looking at the great advice that they were giving just nonstop. But then I went to sleep and woke up in the morning, forgotten everything, almost. There's just sort of a faint hazy remembrance, like, oh yeah, I was trying to do something, and I know it was something important, and there's something to do, and I tried to figure it out. What was that? Oh yeah, I'm supposed to. Eventually, it comes back slowly, groggily. It comes back. So it seems like when you go to sleep, that sleep is used to really plunge you into severe forgetfulness. And it certainly does. And then during the daytime, you're frantically busy. That keeps you also in severe forgetfulness. And then if you choose to be inauspicious enough to watch, the real heavyweight stuff that's taking place on television, the award shows, etc., then that really puts you into the extreme forgetfulness. It's like drinking a bottle of hard alcohol. You're going to really, really be in bad shape from that. So, I'm still not getting any well, I can give you a still picture. How about that? There's a still picture. I cannot get a live picture. Well, I'll just have to use a still. That'll work. It's not a bad picture anyway, so. And it's getting freezing out here. Very cold. I have some tea here. So the whole idea is that you don't want to break the current of your efforts. When you break the current of your efforts, there's a saying by there is a saying excuse me, by Anandamayi-Ma that says, when there's a gap in the garland of your spiritual practice, the mind immediately descends down in towards the perishable, which is very true. As soon as you let up effort, you will find the mind will suddenly take you off the tracks and drive you very quickly into the bad part of town. As soon as you give the driving over to the ego immediately hightail it, to some really bad dive, full of, really bad stuff, whether it be attraction to this world or violence or something just awful. The ego immediately, like a homing pigeon, that's where it goes. And that's what you don't want. So it's very important to keep your aspiration. Part of her message was to keep your aspiration constantly going without a break in it.
And we'll see everyone.
Ramana focused on the I and gave the same advice. You must use great effort indeed, non-stop effort. And so that's all you're being called to do, non-stop effort. Is that possible? Well, it's pretty darn difficult. It's kind of an ideal to go to work towards, and you can do a pretty good job of it. And we need to do a good job of it. As soon as we stop, so I'm going to switch over here for one moment. Bear with me on this. You can watch this video and I'll set it up. No, for some reason, video's not working. Interesting. I added it and it does not work. So what can I say? I have no idea why that is. Well, it doesn't matter. We have plenty of clips and we'll just keep on trucking here. You got to expect situations that crop up. This is a very good example of this recording here of situations not going the way that you want them to. And instead of panicking, you just shrug it right off like water off a duck's back, and you just keep your focus going. And you know, you get lemons, you make lemonade out of them. You don't stop for any reason. Go with the flow. Just something pushes you one way, you just, bend with the breeze like that, but you stay rooted in your sadhana, your spiritual effort. That is the key. And, we don't have several things functioning right now, but we have Ramana-Maharshi here, and that's all we really need, isn't it? It's absolutely fabulous. No doubt that he had attained realization in a previous life and then came back to this world to be of service. That's why he didn't have to go through such great efforts, because he'd already either attained it in a previous life or almost attained it in a previous life, but something along those lines. So it was pretty easy for him to suddenly say, oh, drop the false identification, boom, just like that. And said, no trouble at all. He had a very interesting mannerism when he was young, that when he would sleep, he would go into this tremendously deep sleep. So much so that his friends could literally pull him out of bed, put him in a ped cab or something, and take him around town and move him all around town, and then bring him back to bed and put him back to bed, and he would never even wake up from any of that. So when he went to sleep, it was as if, he was gone. Wasn't that he was sleepwalking. No, he was simply completely asleep and just would not wake up. So, that's very unusual. And it may be that he simply dropped all identification with form, with this world when he went to sleep. Said, no identification with it, and no awareness of the body at all, even in a sleeping condition. And then he was able to, at a young age, drop the false identification and be a witness to true identity here in this world. How many are there that have done that? Well, we don't know exactly how many, but they are around. It happens. Occasionally I find one on the internet. And there are, who knows, someone may wake up today, may drop the false identification even today. Very possible. In today's world, under the pressure we're under the necessity that we're under, and the big boost that we're receiving, it could very well happen that someone today could drop it and just say, okay, I know that the I is not my identity. And interestingly enough, the I am is also not our identity. The witness to the dream is also not our identity. Our identity is not really witnessing the dream. There's an awareness of it, but it's not the type of awareness that we call witnessing, as if there's some still passive witness to the dream, like a viewer of a television set or something. That is also part of the dream. That's also part of mind's Maya. A hypothetical scenario here, a plausibility that endlessness can be brought to an end. That's also part of it. The I am, the silent witness. What we are is endlessness. And endlessness really is neither interested nor not interested in existence. It's beyond those concepts of this and that, either or. So you really, whatever you say about it, it isn't it. It both is and isn't it, which means it really isn't it. It's not even the effort to not identify with this is there. It simply is what it is, without any idea of trying to be what it is. So there can be awareness of this world, and there can be non-awareness of this world. Everything that arises, all states arise within the one identity. And yet none of those states define the one identity in any way. In any way. The silent witness does not define the one identity. The I am does not define the one identity. The I am is not God. Okay, the I am arises in God, within endlessness. But endlessness, endless being is God. And that just is. It's not is something. No, it just is. It's endless isness. This is the type of talk that reinforces truth within you. This is the type of talk that you need to continue focusing on, even though you may not understand it intellectually or academically. It doesn't matter. The response is intuitive. It's not an understanding that you're after. You're after a recognition, a response, a soaking in. We had these, wanted to grow some seeds, so we bought these fiber pellets that are all shrunken up, and you pour water onto the pellets and they expand so you can put the seeds in them and start the seeds. It's like that. It's like listening to truth. We expand. There's some kind of expansion taking place. That's not an intellectual thing. It's beyond that. It's more of an intuitive appreciation. I think the expansion is a type of appreciation, really. An acceptance, a hospitality. Look at it as a hospitality. Look at your listening as an exercise in hospitality, really. I think that's the best way, is where you have a guest and you really want that guest to stay. So you go out of your way to do everything possible to get that guest to stay. Very kind. And so when this guest is speaking and providing insights and advice and encouragement and assurance, you make sure that you're attentive to this. Because if you're not attentive, maybe the guest will say, oh, well, this one doesn't really want to listen to any of this, so I might as well go on my way. You don't want that. Don't want that to happen. So you'd say, yeah, I'm listening. And actually really listen. Don't just fake it, but actually listen, and not like a parrot. Like a parrot will be listening to what you say. You have a parrot in a cage and you're giving satsang, and the parrot's like, has its head kind of cocked to a side, and you can tell the parrot's really listening very intently. But what's the parrot listening to? Is listening to the sounds, trying to imitate, trying to mimic the sounds, right? It doesn't understand the meaning of what's being said at all. So academic listening is like being a parrot. You're trying to memorize what's being said so that you can regurgitate it later on and get an A from the teacher. But the teachers here with spiritual truth are not like school teachers, because they're basically telling you, you have to jump in the pool yourself. Not just mimic some report of someone else who has. You still must jump in the pool. Everyone must. And they keep telling us that over and over and over and over. And you don't have to parrot back anything that they say, necessarily. Because they're not giving out grades. You give yourself the grade by dropping false identity. And that's an A+. You either get an F or an A+ in existence. An F is to maintain the belief that in false identity, that it will eventually enable you to be prime creator and start a new creation. That's false. That's an F. And the A+ is to drop that identification, drop the story, drop the effort to be prime creator, which is essentially an effort at negation, and choose the idea of non-negation. That you're not trying to bring an end to endlessness. You're not trying to be prime creator. That's an A+. So Ramana here got an A+. And you can tell that he's an A+. So really, there's nowhere for you to be a student, is there? Not really. You're either going to get an F or an A+. It's either pass or fail. So it doesn't matter what to worry about grades, because it's pass or fail. You either pass or you fail. And Ramana here, certainly he passed. Drop the false identification. If realization is not eternal, it is not worth having. It's not worth realizing. If realization is not eternal, it's not worth having that. By eternal, he means endlessness. Endlessness is the actual nature of reality. Never ending, always overflowing. Anandamayi means overflowing joy. And overflowingness, a constant overflowingness. And endlessness is always transcending itself, is overflowing itself, always. The I thought is said to be the sum total of all thoughts. The source of the I thought has to be inquired into. Yeah. The I thought is the fake, false identity. It's the one that supposedly is being modified by all other thoughts. It's a thought, and all thoughts are modified by other thoughts. So when you pick up the I thought, you find that it gets buffeted about, increased and decreased, and pushed this way and that way, pulled that way, by all other thoughts. So it's in the realm of thought and thoughts are constantly arising from the dynamic of constructivity and destructivity. So you'll find constructive thoughts and you'll find destructive thoughts, and the interplay of those, the dynamic of those, and the I thought will be pushed around, blown around like a leaf in the wind by all of those thoughts. And we keep trying to make the I thought secure. You cannot make a thought secure. A thought is not identity. Okay? Beingness, endless beingness is identity. There's not two identities. So a thought can never ever be an identity. You cannot make it greater than endlessness. You already have identity. It's endless identity. You can't get rid of it. You can't substitute a thought for endlessness. But that's what we're trying to do. So the I thought is vulnerable. It's vulnerable to the not I thought. It's vulnerable to the I am less thought. Vulnerable to the I am more thought. It's vulnerable to I need to go do this thought. It's vulnerable to I need to not do this thought. It's vulnerable to the I am going to die thought. It's vulnerable to the I am going to be born thought. It's vulnerable to all thoughts. It's impress all these thoughts, move the I thought about. The I thought is simply like a marker that gets moved about. And then you're supposedly, the I am is paying attention to that, witnessing the moving about of this I thought, and believing that somehow this has some consequence in reality. It has no consequence in reality whatsoever, none, zero, nada. Doesn't affect endlessness, doesn't stop endlessness from overflowing, from transcending itself every moment. So it's not consequential what happens to this I thought. And the silent witnessing of this I thought is also not consequential. You don't need to witness it at all. You don't need to even pay attention to it. You think Sri Ramana-Maharshi right here is paying attention to the I thought? If you go on working with the light available, you will meet your master as he himself will be seeking you. There you go. He will be seeking you right there. And he is seeking us. There's no question about that. The meeting that I had with him during sleep one night was a situation where he literally sought me out. That is true. I was being just by myself, and this person walked up to me and said hello, and I said, I want to tell you something, and told me something, and he sought me out, and I was tremendously grateful for that. So you keep on seeking the truth, with the light that is available to you, and the Master will seek you out in some way. Maybe not some physical body showing up. May not be like that. For instance, in my case, Muji. I came across him. I was guided to come across Muji. I've never met him. I've never been in his presence. He's over there in Portugal and Ramana-Maharshi, and travels around in Europe somewhat, but I cannot go over there. Don't have the means to go over there. And so he's helping out, even though the presence is not there physically. So gurus can help out subtly in subtle ways. They can even have ones that have passed on, like Ramana right here. He had passed on, but he's still able to easily, in the subtle realms, contact spiritual aspirants and give them a boost, which he does. I can testify to that fact. He definitely saved me here because I was ready to quit. Really, I simply felt like what I was doing would never have any help, would not influence or help anyone. And he said, no, that's not true. It seems that way right now, he said, but later on, down the road, this will be very helpful to many. That's what he told me. So I said, okay. So he said, keep on going in the direction you're going. It's a very great direction. I love it. I love the way that you express it, and what you're all about, what you're doing, and don't stop. Keep at it, even though nobody's paying attention. So I took his word for it, and there's a little attention here and there right now, spotty, but that's something. So I continue on and keep amplifying the efforts, making them better and better and better. And this is an example of that. This is something that's really very unique to the web, this type of slide presentation. I feel it's very potent. I feel it's very helpful for you to spend some time reading, and then looking at the beingness of these great teachers, because that's what they're showing you. They're showing you beingness. That is what it's all about. And what a great beingness it is.
Thank you for joining us.
This is a beingness that is not worried about the I thought, is not worried about I am thought, or the I am focus. This is a beingness that knows itself, that is constantly overflowing itself. And it's simply enjoying that overflowingness. It's always transcending whatever possible boundaries there could possibly be. It's always overflowing that. Endlessness is always transcending itself, really. And these great beings are simply enjoying that, not worried about anything, not worried about how the I thought is getting moved around. Everything in this world gets moved around, gets influenced, gets touched. Your body, your emotions, your thoughts, all those things really are various forms of thought. And these thoughts are ceaselessly ping-ponging around, like some video game. Something comes along, ping, knocks it over this way, and then something else comes on, boom, knocks it up there, and then boom, down there, spinning around and gyrating this way and listing that way and bobbing along. All these currents, thoughts being affected by thoughts. There's no thought that is not affected by other thoughts. It's the very nature of thoughts to be affected by other thoughts. No such thing as a thought that is invulnerable, that is perfectly stable, because it's always vulnerable to the thought of not being stable. The pressure is there, even if it holds on like a rock. The pressure is still there. It knows the pressure. It's aware of the pressure. It's feeling the pressure. It's strategizing. It says, I gotta hold on. I gotta hold on. Whereas in the case of true identity, there's no effort at all to hold on to anything. Ramana is not trying to hold on to something there, is he? It's effortless. There's no worry or concern that some type of instability is going to come about. There's no vulnerability to instability. So, really, thought must be the transcended. It must be, you must let go of the fixation and fascination with thought, and it doesn't matter what happens to the I thought. The I thought is no more important than any other thought. But thought needs something to move around, something that represents identity, which is what the I thought is. It simply represents identity. It's a representation of identity. And then the other thoughts, stomp on this I thought and move it all around and kill it and do all sorts of things, terrible things to it, which symbolically represent the end of identity, which is the end of endlessness. That's why the I thought was put there. It was put there as a package deal with all other thoughts. All the other thoughts that we need to showcase our power, the power to end identity, bring identity to an end, bring endlessness to an end. So we need something to represent endlessness and identity, so that then we can push that around and bring it to an end. And therefore, the I thought represents that. Represents identity and endlessness as a thought, so that it can be then vulnerable to all other thoughts. And that is the play of Maya that we're so familiar with. It's pretty simple. It's really pretty simple. And I still cannot get the webcam up there. No matter what I do, I cannot get the webcam up there. You can never mix the two states, the dream and the waking state. Very true. And that's something that we actually attempt to do on the spiritual path. We try to mix truth and lies, because the waking state through identity is completely invulnerable, and the fake I is completely vulnerable. There's so many ways to express the fact that you cannot mix the two. You cannot mix the two. Our troubles come from trying to include both. Like I said, if you try to serve two different masters, you'll be faithless to both of those, which is very true, and you'll fall into depression. Depression is a problem on the spiritual path, because you try to accommodate both the ego and the Holy Spirit. You try to accommodate truth and lies. You try to find some way to integrate them. People call it the integral path. There was a time there when integration, integralness, it was very, very buzzword in the academic circles on the sort of pseudo-spiritual path that many were kind of toying with as dilettantes, really. And the idea that somehow you can integrate everything into one. No, absolutely not. That is not what is meant by oneness. It is not that we can all become one. It is that there's only one identity already. There's always already been only one identity. It's not that there's a whole bunch of different identities, and these different identities need to be stitched together into one identity, need to be integrated into one identity. No, that's the ego's idea. That's the mind presenting these ridiculous marketing strategies. There's a marketing strategy of the mind to keep spirit fixated with this ridiculous story of how endlessness can be brought to an end. It is by saying, we can have peace on earth in the kingdom of heaven here if we all just need to become one and integrate and realize that we're all one. Now, that's not really it. That's sort of like a backwards way of looking at it. What we need to do is drop the I, or the we, and say I am one with everyone, or the we are all one. Drop that and say there is only one. There's always only been one. Never two. Never two. And the oneness has always been seamless. There's no stitching needed. Nothing needed to put it together. It's always the perfect oneness. It's always there. And we are frantically trying to become the one. And that's the error. That is the error. You do not become the one. You're already the one. You can't become what you already are. What you need to do is you need to stop trying to become the one. It's almost like a reversal of the so-called spiritual path that most people are familiar with, which I pointed out from the day I got on this earth. I pointed out this was mistaken. This was a mistake. As soon as I could talk, I would get in discussions with spiritual aspirants and say, no. I'd say, what they're trying to become one, that is the mistake. That is the ego. And they got upset about it. You know. And people still do get upset about it. You know, that's spiritual dilettantism leads to that. But if you're really, truly fed up with existence and you want to get free of it more than you want to breathe, then you will develop enough momentum to see through this false teachings of the ego that are offered to the world as spiritual teachings, because they're very tricky. Very tricky, because it seems like, well, becoming one, that seems like, gee, yeah, we all want to become one, or realizing we're all one seems to get close to the answer. But there's still that, we are all one thing. It's not that. It's that there's only one. There's only God. In other words, there's only identity. Identity is all that there is. Nothing ever left identity. Nothing can ever come back to identity. There's no coming or going. None of that. And we realize that when we give up the idea of trying to be prime creator, which resulted in all of this confusion and deception, self-deception. That's what caused it. The Spirit wanted to be prime creator, wanted to be the prime source of creation. And the only way that it can even imagine this is that it has to somehow get past endlessness. It has to find the end to endlessness. So it can look and say, okay, endlessness ended there, and now I am here, and I'm beginning, a new beginning, and from this new beginning comes a new creation. Because if it can't find an end to endlessness, then everything that it does is merely arising in endlessness, right? That is true. Okay, I'll put some audio up on this here so you can see who is talking, who is sharing this with you. The only way, like I said, that mind can present this idea of being prime creator is to convince Spirit there's a way to get to end endlessness. Otherwise, everything that is arising in the endlessness already. Always. There's no time when it's not arising within endlessness. And therefore, how can there be a new beginning? From where? A new start. How can there be a new start? Everything is already abiding in endlessness. Where can you find a new start, a new creation? No. Whatever you do, whatever creation you do, is arising within the endlessness that's already there. That's why we're in this crazy merry-go-round of existence, of life after life and death after death, trying to provide evidence that there's a way to end endlessness. That's literally what we're doing. And when we decide to give that up, we decide, okay, I don't want to be prime creator. I don't want to try to end endlessness. I don't want to try to find some power of negation. I choose the idea of non-negation, of not trying to be prime creator, of not trying to end endlessness, and not trying to generate evidence of endings, of negation. Okay, and then there's no reason to identify with all of the stuff that was used to produce the evidence, false evidence, you can look at as all perfectly seamless. There's no need to see any endings anywhere. And then you're able to, once again, know true identity. You have to literally drop the desire. In some traditions, it's called desire. In what I speak, I call it idea. It's the same thing. But there's only one idea that led to existence, that led to all of this, that caused this to arise. And that's the idea of wanting to be prime creator. That's the only idea that caused this. It wasn't multiple ideas. It wasn't a combination of ideas. It was one idea, one stupid, crazy idea that gave rise to all of this merry-go-round we're on. And you only need one idea. Exchange it for one idea. You don't need to exchange it for multiple ideas. Just one simple idea. Say, hey, how about the idea of not being prime creator, but being the prime created? Being what I am. I have the idea of being what I am. Of being identity, of being beingness, of being isness, of being endless, overflowing isness. I have that idea. And then, therefore, you need no evidence of negation. No, you don't need to manufacture any evidence of negation. Therefore, you don't need to identify with an I thought. The I thought that's being pushed around and negated, you don't need to pay any attention to that at all. It's not necessary. Because there's no purpose for it anymore. There's no meaning for it at all. That's the beauty of it. Realization is to get rid of the delusion that you have not realized. That's right. It's a delusion that identity isn't already here. It's here right now in equal amounts as anywhere, as any time, as yesterday, as tomorrow, as here, as a million years ago, a million years in the future, endless infinite time in the past, endless infinite time in the future. Identity will always be there in exactly the same amount as it is right now. It'll always be in the place where you are now. It'll always be exactly the same amount of identity as there is in any other place. A trillion light years from where you are is exactly the same amount as it is right where you are right this minute, right this second. In the situation you're in, you're watching this, listening to this, any other situation, identity will be exactly the same amount as it is right now for you in your situation. No difference whatsoever. Therefore, wherever you go, whenever you go there, and whatever you do as you're going there, when you're there, it's going to be exactly the same identity as it is right this second, right now, right here, right now. That's always the case. Always will be the case. All right. And that puts a cherry on top of the talk, because that is the gospel truth. That is the adamant, strong truth that will really wake you up, as if when you realize that no matter what you do, where you go, when you go there, the truth of your identity, truth of reality will be present for you in perfect equal amounts as it is present for you right now, exactly this instant where exactly you are and what you're doing. Then you have to ask yourself, well, wait a minute, then what am I waiting for? What exactly am I waiting for? And you begin to see that waiting is foolish. A complete waste of time. That begins to sink in. That really does begin to sink in, and as that sinks in, you will experience being. Begin to experience the dawning of your identity of being, because you realize, well, I can't get away from it. It's useless. No matter what I do, it's there. Everything is arising within it already. You don't have to somehow make it arise. By doing something, it's already arising within your identity. Everything that's happening is arising. All thoughts arise within your identity. All situations, all time, space, everything. All reactions, thoughts, efforts, non-efforts, everything is already arising within your identity. You don't have to do anything to make that so. And so we're working on this together to bring us closer and closer and closer to dropping this nonsense idea of being prime creators, which is an impossibility. The prime creator did not give endlessness the capacity to come to an end and then to establish a new creator. a new creation. No, that is not true. Even the entire universe, we hear that the universe comes to an end. Sure. And then a new one arises and then it comes to an end. But all of that arising of a universe and then sustaining of it and then coming to an end, that's all arising within endlessness. Endlessness is always there, prior to the universe or prior to anything arising. It's already there. So the scale of what arises within endlessness doesn't matter. It can be trillions of years. A universe can last for, trillions of years and then subside. Doesn't matter. Identity is, endlessness is equally there. It's not changed or modified one bit by any of that. And has no authority to change that. Nothing has authority to change that. Even God cannot change that. Because God is that. All right. Well, we give thanks to these great helpers, these beings who have given us a great boost as we have spent some time with them here tonight, as we have bypassed the tinsel and glitter and glamour of Tinsel Town and their superficial, gross, raunchy appeals to you, for you to continue to identify with the I thought and the modifications of the I thought, specifically as you're experiencing them as the modifications of your body here in this world. We bypassed that. We did a bypass. We did a Tinseltown bypass tonight. No Oscars for us. We don't need Oscars. We don't need an Oscar. We have Ramana right here. That's better than any Oscar, isn't it? There's no Best Acting Award. He's not acting. Okay? He's not acting. There's no act there. You can see that. You can feel it. That's no put on. That's no put on. So continue to avoid the ego's superficial offerings. Continue to pay attention to the more profound and deep offerings in whatever way you can find them, and it will have an effect on you. It will enable you to have even greater concentration and focus on it as you go along, and it literally will enable you to sidestep the troubles that are coming up because your attention won't be interested, it won't be pulled into the troubles. Okay? That's one type of sidestepping. There are other types of more profound sidestepping that they'll literally open the door to those more profound sidestepping. But certainly, the first step in sidestepping is to not pay attention to all the reportings and all the news and such of all the troubles, as well as all the glamorous celebrations of whatever, of humanity, of humans, of the flesh. Forget about the celebrations. Do you think Ramana would show up at the Academy Awards? No. So you keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. There's no act here. He's not interested in actors. Not interested in act. Not interested in movies. Not interested in all that superficial drama, the Sturm und Drang of the I thought. Not interested in what happens to the I thought. No need to be interested in any of that. Simply abide in the self. Abide in the one true identity that is ever transcending, overflowing itself. And abide in that overflowingness. All right. Very great. Time to wrap things up. I need to thaw out a little bit. Thanks for watching. It's been a great experience. There have been some glitches here, and of course, I will work on working those out as we go along, as you expect. You have to take baby steps at first, and you can't expect everything to go right. I believe I've been schooled in this by being a golfer, which was suggested to me by Divine Grace, saying, get into golf, be a golfer, and what it teaches you is you simply don't get flustered because you have to make the next shot. Go find your ball, get the next shot, get the ball in the hole somehow, There's no time for tears or tantrums or expressions of, well, I can't do this. You're out there and you have to finish. You can't quit in the middle of a round of golf. That just, you don't even know where you are half the time. So you literally have to find a way to get the ball in the hole 18 times. It's the same thing on the spiritual path. Glitches happen all the time. You just simply have to find a way to keep on going. They're just bumps in the road, and you come back stronger than ever. And you may not ever get free of those glitches as far as your effort goes. But you can be free of concern about the I thought, where you realize it's just a thought like any other thoughts, and it has nothing to do with what I truly am, what my identity really is. All right. We will convene again at some point when there is strong, compelling world situations that require divine distraction to be present. And until we meet again, stay strong with your endeavor and your determination and your perseverance and your inspiration. Keep finding it wherever you can. Keep paying attention to it. I know there's some of you that are doing this. Just keep at it. Increase it. Make it even more intense, but don't use stimulants to try to increase your intensity like caffeine. Don't do that. They'll have a short-term gain, long-term burnout. I'm able to do this now because I don't touch caffeine or any stimulants at all. I know it would give me a burst, but then the burnout would be there, and the burnout would be very critical and miss the opportunity. So stay away from that. If you're tired, take a rest. Very simple. Take a rest. Just lie down, take a 15, 20 minute, half an hour nap. Just take a nap. I do it all the time. Have to take a nap. All right. We will leave you here with this awesome witnessing and reassurance of Sri Ramana-Maharshi. See you next time.